The session is being hosted by Trilegal. The topic of the session is Dispute Resolution in the Indian Mining Sector, Balancing Environmental Concerns and Contractual Obligations. The moderator of the session is Mr. Samit Shukla. The speakers of the session are Mr. Bhalchandra Patil, Ms. Gayatri Singh, Mr. Prakash, Mr. Sidharth Indukuri, and Mr. Tarpit Patni. May I request all the panelists to please come on stage. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to moderate today's panel, which brings together distinguished representatives across the mining sector, including industry stakeholders, ex-regulators, legal experts, and professionals from allied sectors. We are honored to be joined by Mr. Prakash, Group General Counsel and Corporate Affairs Head, Lloyds and Metals, Mr. Sidharth Indukuri, Managing Director, Indukuri Group, Mr. Bhalchandra Patil, current Vice President of Environment, Analyst and Engineering Private Limited, former Municipal Commissioner and Member of State Environment Impact Assessment Authority, Ms. Gayatri Singh, Senior Advocate, Bombay High Court, Mr. Tarpit Patni, Head of Legal-Mumbai, Godrej Properties. As introduced, this session will delve upon complex interplay between environmental regulations and mining contracts, with a particular focus on ESG compliance and the enforceability of sustainability clauses in the mining projects. As all of us know, in a lighter note, mining has always been used as a taboo for environmental laws, but it's not exactly what it is what we expect from our panelists too. So we look forward for a thought-provoking discussion and valuable insights that will benefit all the stakeholders engaged in this sector. Without further ado, let's begin. If I request Mr. Prakash, what are the current challenges faced by the Indian mining sector?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to start with the challenges that are being faced by the mining sector. To start with, since this session is to be aligned around the ESG being at the focal center, ESG is environmental, social, and governance, and the sustainability of the mining is also to be seen. So I'll start with telling that sustainable development is a very important concept in the mining industry and all industries. And the best definition till date I have found is, it is a marriage between economy and ecology. So there has to be a marriage between both. You have to have economy running, you have to also control the ecology, and you have to maintain it for the future generation. This is the hallmark of everything. With that at the background, I like to term down few challenges which are being faced in the mining industry. Today we can decide which venue can a hotel be for this conference, where we want to stay, where we want to fly, where our manufacturing unit can be, where our shop can be, where your house can be. But you cannot decide where the mine has to be. The mine will be where it is. You have to go to the mine, face the challenges there, understand what are the pros and cons related to that, and you have to excavate. That is the thing. Second is, the most important thing is the branding around the mining sector. People speak less on the branding of the mining sector. Today, the branding sector of the mining sector is that it is a mafia. Bad people are involved into that. A lot of things. There are illegal mining, पेड़ काटते हैं. A lot of things are being talked about mining sector. There has to be a good mining branding, because today you can't imagine anything without a mining. Today we are sitting in this hotel. Can you imagine this hotel coming up without mining? Cement, steel, even your specs, all those who are wearing, it cannot come without mining. Mining is so important. Third is, we have to also get into the underexplored potential of the mining industry. Today, till now in the country, we have huge potential of resources, maybe major, minor, all types of minerals. But what are we doing? We have only done around 10% of the potentials that is available in the country. 90 is still to be done. Huge work with all of us at hands. Having said that, the challenges are also around the mining. What are the mining today? We have deeper mines. We have older mines in the country where we are doing. The cost of mining is increasing. We are being told to improve, ramp up the production, decrease the cost. But the mines going deeper, the older mines, it is becoming a costly affair, which leads that we need to together work on opening new mines in the country. So that is another challenge. The dynamics of the mining industries keep changing. Where if you're talking about coal, you're talking about iron ore. Iron ore is generally on the hills, where you will be having forest. You will be having to deal with the forest department, government for the clearances. If you are going for a coal mining, you will be seeing a lot of inhabited areas over the mining area. You will have to deal with the public to remove the houses before you do the mining. Similarly, land acquisition, RNR, land acquisition, the new act has come in 2013. The very act, the name is so long, you will see that the entire legislative intent is there, built in. Okay. Then apart from that, there are other challenges that we have to take care is that the compliances are required in the mining sector. You have to go for the mining plan approval, EC clearance, FC clearance, CTO, CTE. And therefore, which makes the gestation period for the mine to start so long that you start with an intent 4 years, 5 years, and down the line you will be actually able to start with the mining. So there are a lot of challenges. Other speakers will also take the forum, and we will all keep adding to whatever we said. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Prakash. Sidharth, coming to you. According to you, what are the challenges that you face while undertaking business in the mining sector? What are your views as a stakeholder that we would like to know?
Hi, I'm Sidharth. I'm the Managing Director of Indukuri Group. We specialize in underground coal mining, and we're mostly in Jharkhand. We do a bit of open cast as well, but that's what we do. So I think from a challenge perspective, we were just having this conversation earlier. I think the biggest challenge, as everyone's put it, is the perception around mining. We're almost considered the black sheep of the family, where we're only meant to do not the good things and good things. So basically, I think in terms of challenges though, I think Prakash sir has already spoken elaborately, and he's explained that the timeline is one of the main things and some of the other things that he's discussed. But from a policy point of view, I think most of these minerals now are auctioned, which are auctioned by central government agencies or the ministry itself. But then all your approvals later on, you have to go to the state government. And there's no dialogue in the contract, at least, where the state government is involved. So the vesting rights are given to you first, but then everything else you have to go to the state government for your local pollution body, the public administration. Everything is run by the state, and they're not party to the contract. So I think some amount of state buy-in into these projects ahead of time would really help in terms of the actual setting up of the projects and operating them. And even from especially from an ESG point of view, when it comes to the social part, I think right now most of these mines, again, they're allotted to you, and then you go to the state government, you have to get all your approvals, and you go to the public and you have to get all of your rehabilitation, resettlement through them. But it is a unbalanced sort of bargaining power in their favor. I think it's been set up in a way so that they're not exploited, but I think it's very unbalanced today to an extent where there's no involvement of the government, but it's all the private parties who have to do it. So I think these are the two main themes that at least stood out to me when I was trying to think about how to balance the two and what can be done to make it better. And I think the litigation and the other parts of the legal side, I think the other experts will speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Sidharth, for this. Mr. Patil, coming to you. You being a regulator yourself, we would really like to know your perception as far as the mining sector is concerned.
Sure. As said by my other panelists, really what you call the mining is a really challenge for all of us. We can't survive without extracting the mines from the earth. Everything, you must have seen, everything was, as said by Prakash sir, cement, steel, ores, all these things, vertical metals, everything, not only in solid forms, even in liquid forms, in gaseous forms. So whatever we think, we take it from the extract from the ground, and ultimately that is going to have the impact on the environment. And to compensate that, it is very essential to take care of that. But at the same time, what happens is that we have seen that in few years, lot of changes, climate changes are there. And these also impacted the, what we call mining operations to large extent. You must have seen There are a lot of floodings are happening in the mining places, causing the disruption in the mining processes. Some of the areas like, you will find some mining, huge amount of this thing, what you call the ores and minerals in the areas of what you call eco-sensitive zones or going to be converted into eco-sensitive zones, then forest areas. And a lot of problems are there. Whenever you go to be, as I said by the single panelist, it takes almost 2 to 3 years or more than that to get the clearances. And process is so tedious that it has to go to what you call one person from the local person called as a RFO, then DFO, then what you call deputy, another person, director, then ultimately then goes to some state level authority, then goes to uppermost. And it takes huge amount of time. We have to convince them. Apart from the what you call compensation or whatever royalty and other things are okay. That's okay. Huge amount of increase is also there. That also you must be aware of this thing. But once we said, when it was as a business, we have to bear with the cost. But we can't bear with the time. That's very important. And that time, how to bridge the time and how to reduce that, is important for us. As said by the earlier panelist, again, the impact of the what you call this thing, local or the interference of the residents, habitants, and so-called mafia or other people. Because when it has come as a business, the people are more attracted to do the such type of business. So they are what you call before startup process, even during the operation, they stop the process and whole economy or whole the cash flow of the system gets disturbed. So there has to be a certain regulation. There are of course certain reforms has been made by the what you call MOF and government to streamline the things together, but at the same time it is not getting so much what you call synchronized, and people are this thing, all the businessmen are getting suffer. Beside that, one important thing is that once the mining operation is done, again the things are there, as we said, as environmental monitoring and other thing. Post-mining operations, or what called when it's a closure comes. The closure is not done for so many reasons. Not only because people don't want to do it. There are a lot of problems, other issues are there. People don't allow. They say कि बाबा चलो ऐसे क्वारी ऐसे रहने दो, एक क्वारी ऐसे रहने दो, इसके अंदर कुछ और कुछ करना है, कुछ भी करना है. वहाँ भी अगर फिलअप करने का है तो उसके लिए मटेरियल कहाँ से लाने का है. That is also important. अगर बना उधर भी वाटर रिस्टोर करना है. These are of course the mitigations are there, but उसके लिए everything has to be fought. What that particular owner of the thing has to fight for all those things. He cannot simply procure the resources. So these are all challenges are there from environmental point of view. There are certain few again changes has been made as far as the cluster mining system is there. That in case someone wants to do this mining in one place at some other few distance of 1 kilometer or so, if they have another cluster, they can bring the environmental system like air monitoring, water monitoring, other things together. That is a good reform that has been made. But it has to be again what you call it has to be there should be consensus in this. Many of the people who are doing this business in the cluster development has to come together and to find out these solutions. But all challenges has to be made simultaneously and coming together to resolve the issues.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patil. Having discussed the problems with the sector, as a stakeholder, Sidharth, we would like to ask you, what are the steps do you take to ensure sustainable mining?
So, I think it's two parts to it, I would say. At least in terms of what we can do as a as an industry, I would say is I think the implementation part. Right? I think the rules are all reasonably framed. The environmental clearances are. There's all sorts of safeguards that are taken from soil, water, air, all of that. I think it's the implementation, the oversight, which I think there is enough systems in place, but I think that can improve and that can be, even to an extent, automated or through video intelligence and things like that can be brought in where sensors and video intelligence where you can actually monitor it and implement it better. And if you look at an overall perspective, in my view at least, for resources such as coal, where there's abundant resources in underground, and essentially when you do an underground mine, technically when you do an open cast mine or a surface mine, you remove the entire earth and then you take the ore out and then you fill it back in some form, and there's rules and regulations around that. But when you do underground mining, you just make 2 tunnels or a shaft and you go down. You can go up to, in India currently we're working at coal itself at 700 meters. I think gold goes much lower. So you can go all the way down and you can mine. Then you don't have to really rehabilitate and resettle people completely. There is a little bit of subsidence that happens, but at least you're not damaging Mother Earth to an extent where underground mining is possible. So I think a push towards that, I think it's happening. I think the Prime Minister's office is focusing on that. But I think a greater push towards that would really help in minimizing our impact. And I think from a general point of view, I think following an implementation of the rules is more than enough in terms of what needs to be done rather than coming up with new things. But again, I'll say subject matter experts can add more, but that's what I understand and I can see.
Thank you so much, Sidharth. Mr. Prakash, we would also like to have your views on this, please.
Hello. Yeah, for sustainable mining and to overcome all the difficulties, we should start where the law stops. Okay. The law stops at all the compliances. It says that you have to take mining plan, okay, done. EC clearances, there are a lot of processes for EC clearances. You have to run through the public hearing where the public has to participate and raise their concerns. You go for forest clearances, there are 2 stages with a lot of approvals around it. You have to go for wildlife clearances where to ensure that your mining is not falling in a tiger corridor or any wildlife sanctuary or forest. Then you have to go for CT, CTO, all that. Where everything stops, a new chapter starts. And if the miners are ready to take that responsibility, nothing can stop proper mining to happen, and that is called as social licensing. Today we need to take the society along wherever we work. We need to ensure that they accept us, they trust us, we follow the ethics, we follow all the rules and regulations, and we should show that we are there for you. Maybe you are not giving them benefits in terms of cash, but in terms of kind, the benefit has to go. Your CSR funds has to be properly utilized. We have to ensure that they get good education there. We have to ensure that they not only get jobs, there are a lot of job demands when you are doing mining, and the biggest constraint is that you have limited jobs to give. Because even the mining laws does not allow a job beyond a particular number, because safety will come into the picture. So you have to create jobs. You should, the companies doing mining, they should bring apparel industries, shoemaking industries, lot of industries where the women of that area can be part of it. Bring education. Today we are sending people from Gadchiroli to Curtin University, Australia, with a view not only to educate them, with a view that once they come back, they can rise to the highest level in the organization. This is how the social licensing can be adopted and given. Once the society gives you the license to work, nothing can stop you from proceeding further. This is how we tend to mitigate the issues which are coming in the process.
Thank you so much, Sidharth and Prakash. It heartens us how you all have encouraged sustainable mining. Now, moving forward, having spoken about the laws, right? We have a legal expert, Ms. Singh. We would like your views as to what the amendments in the mining laws, and especially the 2023 and 2025 mining laws, and what are the impact in view of the private sector participation?
So the topic is very big, but I will concentrate only just on a few amendments. I would just like to say that I'm the minority voice actually here, because I would not agree with what is being said, that there is a total imbalance of power in terms of the government, in terms of the mine operators, and in terms of the workers and the people, local people who reside there. So there's a total imbalance. As far as the regulatory mechanism is concerned, it does not function. I mean, I'm amazed at the way in which things are operating, and we tend to put the blame on someone else that this is happening because there's a mafia there or whatever it is. I'll just give 2-3 examples as far as the amendments are concerned to see how actually it is the private operators who are benefiting, with the government benefiting a small amount in terms of royalty, etc. But what are the violations that are taking place on a massive scale? It's not just one or two districts where it's happening. It's happening in all the coal mining districts, particularly Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, MP, Odisha, West Bengal. You will find that wherever open cast or underground mines have taken place, people have not been rehabilitated. People have been suffering in terms of various health illnesses, etc. I don't want to go into too much of details. We are aware of these facts. But let us just look at the 3 amendments that have taken place. If we look from 2000, you can stop me if I take a little bit long. From 2014 till 2025, let us just look at the amendments that took place. Those amendments were basically, what the government said was that these amendments are taking place because we want to bring in transparency. We want to open it up for private operators. We want delay to be sorted out. And we want a fair price. The government wants a fair price in terms of royalty. These are the 4 conditions on which amendments have taken place. So let us look at the 2015 amendment, which was basically 8B or 8A of the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act of 1955, which basically said the amendment was that the validity period of the mining license would be extended from 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years it would be extended. Now, what was the benefit that people got? They basically, a mining lease which was extended for 30 years previously could now be extended for 50 years. And what were the conditions under which? We will see another 2 amendments that took place in 2021. What were those amendments? One was a very serious amendment, that was 8B, which basically said that any clearances, licenses, etc., which are granted to the lease operator will remain valid even if the lease agreement license has been terminated. Isn't this shocking? That you will continue to have the clearances, you will continue to operate under the earlier permissions, even if your lease license has been terminated or expired. So this is a major amendment that has been introduced in 2021. The speakers, I think, should just say how it works or it doesn't work. And the third amendment, which was also in 2021, was the definition of mine. I will just read that definition because that is also very important. It basically said that a mine continues to be a mine till exhaustion of its mineable mineral reserve. So till the exhaustion of your minerals in that particular mine, it will continue. So the question that arose, and this came up before the Supreme Court and the Kerala High Court, was, will the leaseholder, if the lease is to be extended for 50 years, from 30 to 50 years, would the clearances that were earlier given under the EC, under the EIA notification, would that EC which was earlier given, would it continue after 20 years? And the leaseholders went up to the High Court because the government said, no, it will not continue. The leaseholders went to the Supreme Court and said that a lease, extension of a lease or renewal of a lease is not the same as asking for a fresh lease license. So which basically meant that an EIA, which is supposed to be read along with the Mines Act, the EIA notification, you are supposed to give more importance to the environment clearances. Now, ultimately what the leaseholder said was that our mine, till the minerals are exhausted, our mine lease will continue till it's exhausted. So the project life was seen as the same as a mine life. Now this is really problematic because your project life might be for a particular period, your lease agreement might be for a particular period, but it continues even though your lease agreement has expired because there is still mineral to be mined inside the mine. So that is one problem. And the second problem is, and I will stop at that, is that when we are talking of an EC, earlier under the EIA notification of 2006, there were 3 categories which were set out under the EIA. One was major industrial units, mines, dams, all that will come under category A, and therefore MOEF or the central government would be the body which will look into these clearances. The expert appraisal committee is supposed to look at the environment issues and grant the EC. Now, while granting the EC, they are supposed to do a screening, they are supposed to do a scoping test, they are supposed to allow for public consultations. With this amendment, basically what the leaseholders are saying, we are not required to have a fresh EC done. Whatever was granted 30 years back will continue even if it is extended for 50 years. And the second problem is that the leaseholders are saying that the environment, EIA is not important, it's not really so relevant. It is the MMDR Act, that is the Mines and Minerals Act, which will prevail over the EPA. So the Environment Protection Act is given a subsidiary role and the MMDR will prevail over that. What that implies is that the EC will not be given by an expert body, but by a body which is authorized under the MMDR Act, which is basically, I would presume, is the body which plans the mining plan. So the mining plan that is prepared by a geologist or by an engineer would be the authority to decide whether clearance is to be given or not. So this is my major objection to and these are just 3 minor amendments, 3 not minor really, but major amendments that have been carried out, which really show that the preference is to help and aid the private leaseholders and not for the benefit of the public, which is absolutely essential when we're talking of environment degradation, whereas the people being displaced, not being rehabilitated. There are umpteen number of examples which we can give. And finally, I would just say on the ESG, that ESG, people talk a lot about ESG, this great thing about ESG, and then it's the government that will ensure that the ESG norms are complied with or not. But this is not a regulatory mechanism. It is more a voluntary provision which the leaseholders are supposed to put it in a format which is given by SEBI. SEBI has given a long drawn out format as to the questions and answers that should be given. So some of the questions are, how many workers do you have? Where do they work? Are they permanent, temporary? Nothing about environment protection, nothing about the rehabilitation, nothing about various other acts. And we already have various acts which provide for protections. For example, the EPA, you have the Mines Act, you have various other acts which provide for protection of the local people. So the emphasis should be on a regulatory mechanism which will ensure that these provisions are implemented.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always an honor to listen to your views, though the stakeholders are not very, very comfortable with that. And I saw Sidharth's face when you said Jharkhand. Just moving on to the next.
One point in this thing. See what happens, as rightly said by madam, EI is one of the important document, but once the operation start, it is not being followed scrupulously. See, post-monitoring compliances, you must have seen, there are not less than 60 to 70 post-monitoring compliances are there. But those are being ignored. That's the main thing, in which everything is there, but those are being ignored. It is treated as a secondary. And the regulatory body who is supposed to look after this is not so much bothered to implement or execute it from the people. And that's the more important things. Because what happens, before the commission of the plant or before the commission of operation, there is no damage. Damage or environmental damage, I can see you say, and damage start or erosion start from thereafter. So compliance is most important thing, and that has to be taken care of. So environmental management plan is not, EIA is not only environmental management plan is important. Post-monitoring compliances are very important in this thing. Then only, as madam said, the things can be it becomes sustainable, it can become a very, strict implementation will be there.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Patni, if you could also share your views on the amendments, though from the mining sector.
No, it's okay. I hope. It's okay. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. See, while ma'am has already spoken about the amendments, so two things I really find which could help and aid in the ESG mechanism or actually protection. So 2015, when the amendment came, a regulatory or a restoration fund was to be set up at the state level. Now in the 2025 amendment, the government has mandated a national fund needs to be set up for restoration, rehabilitation of the mining areas. Of course, new 500 mines could be explored, which has come as the agenda. So that fund, but the fundamental question picking up from where Mr. Patil said, is the utilization. A fund can be set up, but until and unless the same is utilized, I don't think it will make a difference. Again, taking a cue from what ma'am has said and what Mr. Patil has said, now when the lease is granted, now what has happened in the industry, I'm purely saying from an outside purview, the regulatory authority has actually becoming the licensee authority and the leasing authority. So any issue which is coming up actually is coming before the leasing authority, which they cannot go back against their own orders. Environmental Protection Act or EIA is only granting at the stage wherein the industry has been set up, a mine is being set up. But there is no regulatory oversight or any different authority which is actually looking at post setting up for that period of 30 years, 50 years. Every issue which I'm again saying from a very layman perspective actually is going and picked up by the NGT or the Supreme Court. Environment clearance was required from 1994, again in 2006. But Justice Lokur had to write a 240-page judgment in 2017 to say the environmental clearance is necessary for the purpose of setting up a mine, which to my mind, with due respect to my co-panelist, was not required. So I genuinely feel there is a requirement or a debate, because every 3 years there is an amendment which is coming into the mines, different kinds of, there is a policy coming in, there is an amendment in the act coming in, but I don't really see how it is being implemented. So if there is a body, or maybe since we are speaking here, there is a alternated dispute resolution body which is set up. I'm not saying we go to arbitration or mediation, but a regulatory body or a oversight body which can actually look into these kinds of issues wherein people who are actually affected can go, put their grievance and get this resolved, which has to be independent. That's a moot idea, I think, which I have in my mind, which we can, of course, pick it up. But those have not been covered by the amendments, but there's a setup of a fund. So I hope money would be there to set up these kinds of oversight body in which can look at.
Thank you, Mr. Patni. But also please make sure that we lawyers don't lose work. Right? So these amendments are better for us. Moving on to the next question to Mr. Prakash. According to you, what are the requisites for obtaining government tenders as far as for mining contracts?
I'll take the liberty to speak one line prior to that. To
All yours,
answering
sir.
that. Yeah. That we need to understand that mining is not a standalone activity. Mine kiya, nikal liya. Mine, the ore that you have taken out or anything that you have taken out from the Mother Earth has been taken out for a particular purpose, end use. There are laborers on one side, there are end users on the other side. So it's a chain activity that we need to understand. Why did this, the legislative intent behind increasing the mining lease to 50 years with a view to of a purpose that we need to increase our ore production in the country. We were heavily dependent on imports. It was also increasing the cost of everything that you were purchasing. So that was the purpose. When it comes to environmental clearances, yes, I totally agree with ma'am, with my other panelists, that EC is a mandatory thing whenever there is a production. EC has a capacity attached to it. You make an application for 3 million ton, you make an application for 5 million ton, 10 million ton, and that continues till when you decide that your EC, your production has to increase. The moment you decide that your production has to increase, you will have to run through another entire process of increasing your EC to that capacity. So regulations are very good in the country. We need to together ensure that we follow the regulations. If we follow the regulations, believe me, the ESG concepts will be well followed. I do not say that what I am telling is being followed. What I pointed out is that what are the major difficulties which the country is facing. What ma'am said, I totally agree with that we need to work out a framework where we together make this industry a doable industry, make this industry a more compliant industry, and above all, our social licensing is very important. Where we work, the people should know that we are for them. Now, coming to your question, is that basically what are the requirements for participating in a government tenders? Yeah, it's only 5, 6, 7 requirement. You should be a registered company or a consortium. One, your tax clearance certificates for the last 2-3 years will be checked while you are making the bid. Financial audited statements will be required for 3 to 5 years. That is very important aspect, that you should not have been blacklisted by any other government agency in the past, otherwise you will be debarred from participating in that. You should be having a past experience of having operated in, having good mining operations. And very important thing, you should be in a position to give a good hefty bank guarantee or a performance bank bond. So show that you are able to take large scale mining operations. That is the requirement for participating in the tender.
Basically, sir, we wanted to know how are you making money?
You take people along, you will make money.
Moving on, this is for you, Sidharth. How can local communities be empowered within the mining contracts and dispute resolution frameworks, according to you?
So I think, can you repeat the question again, sorry?
Right. So the question to you is, how can local communities be empowered within the mining contracts and dispute resolution framework?
So from a dispute resolution framework, I will go back to what I said earlier when I started off with how the current auctions, or the way the mines are being currently auctioned, it is that you're thrown in the dark, right? Immediately after you get the mine, you're thrown into the area and you have to figure out everything yourself, right? You have to deal with the local, the villages and the people, as well as the state government, right? I think if there is some sort of a buy-in first to start with from the communities before these bids are put out, because the government is best placed to actually be able to say that, you know, if you decide that this area is supposed to be where there is a mineral that is there, that is to be taken out for the good of the country or for the requirement of whatever industry in the country, I think if there's a buy-in from the local community of some sort ahead of time, it makes things easier to start with. And there itself, there could be a committee or some sort of a buy-in from the Gram Panchayats or the Gram Sabhas, something on those lines if it's there, where if there are any issues, then we can go to that same body which earlier agreed to this. I think it will make the whole process better, because today it's the contractor or the auctioneer, the person who's been allotted the mine, is going there, and it's almost a fight on a daily basis where it's a negotiation and a fight and a bargaining, and there's not a good relationship at all. So if there's some sort of a buy-in that can happen before, and a setup of whether it's the Gram Sabhas or the Panchayat that are empowered to actually discuss on certain issues, if that's decided ahead of time and that's part of the contract, and they or the state government become part of the contract in some form, I think that's something that I can think of which will ease in this process a little bit. But I think from a legal point of view, again, what to set up, I think will come from others.
Thank you so much, Sidharth. Moving on to next, Mr. Patil, this question is for you. How do current mining practices impact local ecosystems and communities?
See, when we start with the mining operation in any of the areas, it not only affect the land, but also affect the air and the total atmosphere over there. When we extract any from the Mother Earth, there are going to be cavities inside it. Number one. Number two, during the mining operation, there will be amount of dust emission will be there, noise, there will be noise generation will be there, soil erosion will be there. There will be a possibility of that runoff may get diverted. If suppose the stream is passing, water stream is passing, because whatever the mining operation that has been executed at many places will be on a plain surface. It may be a sloping surface, it may be hilly portion or whatever is there. So lot of environmental changes are happening in such places. And in doing so, we'll have to take care of all those things. In terms of we have to divert if it is going to have the stormwater, we have to divert the stormwater system properly. Number one, if it is during the process, you must be knowing that once the vegetation is there, and if the mining operation is going to be take over there, you have to do a lot of things. It's not only reduction in the number of trees, but also result into the land erosion and particularly the topsoil, which is very enriched in its fertility point of view, also get this thing washed away. So all these things has to be taken care of. Whenever you do this thing, ensure that the topsoil that has been what normally we call as per the manuals, we say that about 15 centimeters of soil has to be treated as a good soil for the purpose of tree plantation again. It is to be preserved. So that is all. Number two is that, as I said, noise. If suppose habitants, there may be possibility that few habitants will be very close to this thing, and then a village, because of the heavy population, you must have seen that all of this thing mining, wherever the minings are there are villages are very close to the that mining operations. So there is a possibility that the water that has been this thing may also get contaminated. There, as I said, air also get contaminated. So we have to see from that perspective that how the water doesn't get contaminated. Because what will happen, there are two aspects are there. There will be a sort of process may involve the use of the chemicals during the course of mining operation. That may get percolated in the earth. And if those got mixed up with the waters, the thing will get disturbed in the near proximity, wherever that contaminated soil is. Number three, it again get the duplication in the groundwater level. That's another point is there. Then another thing, as I said, is that a lot of trees getting disturbed, the ecosystem get imbalanced. So we'll have to ensure that immediately we start with the tree plantation and other things are there. Then as a green cover also gets, as I said, green cover also get reduced to larger extent. Besides that, there will be a sort of a water scarcity, because mining operation, if it is employing a lot of this thing, during the course of this thing, there will be use of water for the cleaning of the mining products or whatever is there, used by the people and other things. So extraction will be there. So that will duplicate the water level again. So all these things has to be taken care of. Then as a air pollution, then there will be a sort of health problems will be there. It can be occupation hazards are there for the employees. It can be respiratory problems or any other type of problems are there for the nearby residents. And all these things are contributing to the environmental damage. But it has to be taken care of, as I said, in your environmental mitigations or the post-monitoring compliance or whatever is there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patil. Moving on. And before we do, apologies Mr. Prakash and Sidharth for asking this question to ma'am. Ma'am, if you had to draft a contract to balance the environmental concerns coupled with labor protection or dispute resolution, what according to you is an ideal contract which balances all stakeholders?
So again, being a devil's advocate,
That's what we want from you, ma'am.
I want to ask a question to all my panelists here. That would they consent to the local people or local representatives from that area to sit on the table to negotiate with them in terms of what that contract should be? That is my first question. Because if you are not allowed, if you are not given the same consultation or the discussion that should be at a mutual level, because you are a weaker party, you do not have that power, you don't have that connection. So you may not be able to say what you actually want. And therefore, what comes in the contract will depend on what the leaseholders want. And then as a measure of some sort of a concession, they might add on to some benefits. And I'll give just one example. We have already, I think, you'll agree, that there is a model contract agreement which is supposed to be signed between the government and the leaseholder. That model contract agreement is supposed to have all these issues. It's supposed to have how are you going to protect the workers, what sort of safety measures are going to be taken, how are you going to protect the environment, what sort of resettlement will take place, etc., etc. All this needs to come in the contract. And if you're not able, and if we look at the contract, if we look at the model contract, what does it have? It says, as far as workers are concerned, it says, must follow industry good practices. What is meant by good practices? What does it mean? For example, we have the Mines Act. It's a fantastic act. I'm not saying it's great and all that, but it is a good act. And it contains basically provisions with regard to safety, with regard to welfare, with regard to minimum wages, with regard to working hours, etc., etc. Medical checkups. There must be regular medical checkups done of the workers, and if they are sick or ill, then they should be given leave with full wages, etc., etc. I don't need to go into detail. So why can't you just say that the provisions with regard to the existing law should be followed? That's as simple as that. What do we mean by good practices? So everywhere you have industry must follow, the company must follow good industry practices. Then we come to question of land acquisition. What are you going to say to people who are going to be displaced? Large number of people are being displaced. And what are they getting out of it? Nothing, zero. You might be minting money, you might be profiting, you might be complaining about how the government is interfering, etc., etc. But what sort of relief are you giving to the people who are going to be displaced? And that is also very important, because the Land Acquisition Act, as far as my knowledge goes, does not apply to coal-bearing areas. For that, there is a specific act called the Coal-Bearing Areas Acquisition and Development Act of 1957. And it's horrendous. What does it say? That any land can be acquired without giving you a hearing, without giving any notice, without giving any compensation. Why? Because of the entire principle of eminent domain. I think everyone knows what eminent domain means. It means that where the state feels it is absolutely essential for acquiring land in public interest, then that land can be acquired. So what are you going to do as far as this land acquisition is concerned? Because the people are not getting any benefit out of it. Then you come to the issue of the existing laws. You have, and I'll finish in two seconds, you have the Mineral Conservation and Development Rules. And if you look at those rules actually set out what your mining plan is. So what is the mining plan? Whatever is set out in the mining plan should include all these issues of displacement, rehabilitation, workers being affected, local people being affected, social welfare benefits. For example, where you're setting up a huge mining operations are going to be conducted in a particular area, you must provide for educational schools, you must provide for hospitals, you must provide for basic needs. The water pollution, etc., that's a major problem. Groundwater pollution is a major problem for those people living in these areas. So what sort of benefits are you going to provide? That is already there in the rules. Why can't you expand on it? Why can't you elaborate in terms of what should be contained in the mining plan? Secondly, you have in the rules, you have a chapter, and it's very shocking. You have a chapter on environment, and it says, take all possible measures for protection of environment and control of pollution. That's all. Take all measures. What measures? What sort of seriousness is there? That's one. Secondly, when you come to a chapter talking about reclamation and rehabilitation of lands, what does it say? You must provide, precautions must be taken. Then you have a section on precautions against vibration, precautions against pollution, discharge of toxic liquid, precaution against notice, etc., etc. So everything is general in precautions. So here you have a rule, you can implement it effectively, which is not being done. And lastly, I will just say, can I just add one more?
Please, please.
Lastly, I would say that when you are talking, you have a law which you are not implementing. Then you have another law on the EPA, you have the EC, etc. Now EC, as I said earlier, has a major component of it is consultation, public consultation. Even that right is being taken away under various notifications which are being issued by MOEF. And I will just give one example of one notification which has been issued. There is a notification which was issued in 2025, and that was the amendment to the MMDR Act, which basically introduced certain atomic minerals were introduced which were not there earlier. You could not, a private party could not mine those particular minerals. Those were added to a schedule of the MMDR, which said basically that these are the additional minerals which are strategic minerals, which are atomic minerals, which will be added to the schedule. And for that, private parties can now go in for mining those minerals. And we know of particular private owners who have approached the government for operating these. So in order to help and aid these operators, the MOEF issued a notification which basically said that that these minerals are critical and necessary so that out-of-turn permissions can be given. Can you imagine an MOEF notification saying out-of-turn permission should be given because these are strategic minerals. These are minerals which the country requires, it's in national interest and therefore. And the second MOEF notification says that no consultation will take place. Because this is in national interest, there will be no public consultation taking place. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think you've lost a brief from Sidharth and Mr. Prakash on this. After having heard ma'am on this, we would like to have stakeholders' views on it. Mr. Prakash, according to you, what should be an ideal mining contract? Mining contract, or basically what would be your expectation as far as contracting for mining sector?
So ma'am, second point was land. Land is the most important thing. Without a land, no one can even open a shop. So for basic, you cannot have a house. You cannot have anything. So land is certainly very important for not only, and what questions we put to the mining industry, the same questions are also applicable to other industries as well. It's all because as I said earlier, nothing is standalone. Everything is a chain activity that is happening. I myself was involved in driving land acquisition. When we were talking about government contracts, we had taken a contract in Jharkhand to do a Pakri Barwadi mines for NTPC. That was, in fact, there was an Australian company which had come, could not function, go, and huge resources of coal was there. It's an NTPC mining. We did, I myself went and drove, and I was instrumental in getting 3,000 houses demolished. Another 1,000 houses pending to be demolished. Believe me, not a single person is there whom a proper rehabilitation and resettlement has not been done. We have paid for every house. We have paid for every land that has come. We have given jobs to 4,000, 5,000 people in that locality. Today, we have got the social licensing from the people to come They accept us like any other, like themselves, and we are doing and we have reached the coal production of 17 million ton last year. This time we are doing it for 19 million ton, and everything is nation building. We must tell that everything is nation building what we are doing. Today, we are having power and everything. This power is coming through burning of coal somewhere. And today, 70 to 80% of the energy is dependent on the coal itself. Though we are talking about renewable source of energy, and everyone should thrive for bringing more renewable source of energy, solar, maybe wind. In fact, the manufacturing units can bring in co-generation electricity. In fact, we are also propagating that the rejects, the waste, the G11, G12, G13 category of coal, which is kept as waste at the mines. That we can open small mini thermal power plants and utilize that to generate electricity and use it in that area. So this land is very important, but yes, as ma'am said, we should make all endeavors to ensure that the person remains happy. Where jobs can be given, they should be accommodated for jobs. Their proper compensation should be done. Even the coal bearing, this coal bearing act says it has a linkage with the Land Acquisition Act of 2013, which is fair right to fair compensation, transparency in land acquisition, resettlement, rehabilitation. A big name. Big name. So itself denotes the intention of the legislature that everything has to be kept in mind while doing it. Keep the people happy, give what is to be given to them. But at the same time, mining is also very important. So this is the thing. Now coming to the contract side, certainly in arbitration or contracts, I'll take the attention towards a different act, maybe not related to that, a motor vehicle act. There is an accident. There are two types of contracts which come out of a motor. There is when you get your vehicle insured, there is a comprehensive policy. One is your own damage, theft and other things. The second part is your third party. Now third party, when there is a own damage, you can claim immediately with the insurance company. That is your contractual obligation with the insurance company. When there is an accident and there is a third party incident happening, you are covered through a policy, but the third party doesn't have a contract with neither with the insurance company nor the insured. How is he protected? There is a contractual, through a contractual obligation he is protected. There is an act which says for a third party compensation, and that is how he is protected. We have to work together to ensure what ma'am is telling, that how to bring it within the contract, anything for the people there. We should be there for the people. Whatever is required in the contract, you want to bring green into the contract, bring green initiatives into the contract. Your vehicle should be electrified. It should run with electricity rather than diesel. Today in one mine, I'll tell where Pakri Barwadi, we are purchasing around 2 lakh liters of diesel every day. So that is huge. How can we reduce the carbon footprint? That is there are dumps, 90-meter dumps that are created through the waste which is coming out of the mines. We can use it for solar empanelment. There are ponds within the mining areas. We can bring floating solar panels there. It will reduce the evaporation of the water by 5%. So many steps can be taken together. Jobs should be a condition in the contract. When ma'am was talking about the contracts, she was probably talking about Form K, which is in the MMDR Act and the rules, which a lessee enters with the state government to get a mine. We also enter into larger contracts when we are taking PSU mines. There, the concept of green has to come into the picture. We ensure, and they also ensure that we give jobs to the local people. We have to, now what I'm trying to say is that when it is arbitration, alternate dispute resolution forum, they may certainly, ma'am also pointed that they may not be at par with a company or the government to raise their voices. The laws are there. In fact, there is a Trade Union Act of 1926. And after that, so many legislations have come into the picture. Wages Act, Bonus Act, Minimum Wages Act. Minimum Wages Act gets changed and amended every 6 months with a new rate coming into the picture. What is the requirement of a Trade Union Act? The basic purpose of Trade Union Act was to negotiate with the company to give the best result for the workers. When the law is there to give the best result to the people, we should all ensure that there is a robust form of compliance with whatever available law is there, and that itself will make and take away all the concerns of many people. So we should be compliant in all respect in the company. That is what I wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Prakash. to reluctantly answer this. I'm sure Sidharth wants to skip this, so we'll allow him to pass. Last question to Mr. Patni. According to you, does the NGT, which is a
Samit, can I just
specialized...
add one thing though? Can I
Please,
add?
please.
It's okay, sorry. So I think, just going to ma'am's point of, will you sit on the table with them? I would say yes. I would say we are, as a private contractor or a lessor, all we are given to court is a percentage of royalty that we can bet on, right? And everything else is in the dark when we go in. What I'm saying is bring it beforehand, not even before, when we come to the table. Do it ahead of time. Tell us what the cost is. We will figure out whether we can be more efficient or somebody else can be more efficient. And at what cost we can do our mining. And you set the rules and the framework clearly in the LARR or whichever rule you want us to follow, and we're okay to follow that. But if we're asked to quote one number and then we go into the contract after, and then we have to sit on a table, we have a unbalanced bargaining power is my point, which I was making earlier. So I'll rest my case there.
Thank you, Sidharth, for being kind. Last questions to Mr. Patni. Do you think that the specialized environmental courts like NGT are adequate to settle environmental disputes, mining disputes, or there is a need for any dedicated mining tribunal? If at all that tribunal is constituted, will it lead to delay or confusion? What are your views on it?
Thank you. I think interesting. I tried to mold this idea. See, when we are looking at NGT or any other tribunal, those are adjudicatory bodies, wherein of course you and other colleagues of mine can appear. But the problem which I generally feel is the people who are affected are not really benefiting. I'll tell you my example. I born and brought up in Jaipur. Until I think 1998, 99, the stone crushing for every other place on the Aravallis was very, very prevalent. While growing up, I had seen until stopped by the Supreme Court. I had a problem. Of course, NGT was not there. I was not efficient enough, or my parents did not have the money to move to the court. So no one wanted to do it. So if there are some micro authorities, tribunals, or some ADR mechanism which can bring in, maybe, I'll take cue from real estate. Or real estate regulatory authority came. Now it's easier for the flat purchasers to go online, file their cases, get the adjudication done for a smaller issue. Similarly, maybe I'll go for a larger issue, ports. So tariff authority for major port schemes, so whatever disputes about the royalty and lease premium were there, could be resolved there. Similarly, in power sector, a lot of sectors. But somehow I think those are missing, at least in mining. So if like a specialized independent body comes up in between the tribunal and court, that could help. Of course, I'm not really sure. There will always be a critique to it. It might delay, it might not solve its purpose, but it has to start. Once it starts, then only we will know whether it will resolve or not. But on a personal point, I think it might help. It might be easier to resolve, because everything going to the High Court or Supreme Court generally delays, is what we feel.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for bearing us for an hour. I hope we were tolerable. Thank you, panelists. Please, please.
Actually, this is a doubt I have. I am asking Madam Gayatri Singh. This is with respect to the MMDR Act 1957, Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act 1957, in which, as per Section 8A, as you are saying, that there are two things which I can understand. Is one is expiry, the other is cancellation. So these two are, as you know, definitely these two are different. If let us say that it is cancelled, even if there is an extension for 50 years, because it's cancelled on a reason where there is some violation or they have done something which is against the rules and regulations, that is where even if there is an extended period up to 50 years, those people are not given, they cannot take it for granted to extend it. But whereas when it gets expired, though it is expired, but they have further, by default they can that is what the variation in which they say that how they can, in spite of getting it expired, how they can go for 50 years. This is the thing. And when it comes to the mining and all, though in spite of having so many things, still there's a lot of gap between the lip and the cup. Very much. Still there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of things. That is why mining had become a area where people can make a lot of money, people can do a lot of violation of rules, all that, though I'm sorry, I'm not meaning for those who are sitting here, but then I'm only telling about the mining industry as such is a big, I shouldn't say, but there's a lot of room for doing mischief in there. Thank you very much, madam. This one.
Can take two questions, one and from that gentleman there.
So while I hear Prakash ji, I hear Sidharth, I hear Tarpit, I hear Mr. Patil, all of you are focusing a lot on ethical mining and you are taking care of the ESG and all of that. One, this is not a standard norm, so there are violations which are happening and rampantly that too. But what is more important, and taking the cue from what Tarpit had mentioned, do you think a regulator would be a relevant, authority, or it would be a tribunal which will really serve the purpose, or maybe both? That, I think, is a question that is to be deliberated, because we don't have an NGT, as you rightly mentioned, does not have sufficient, ability to be able to take into consideration the challenges which are happening in the different corners of our country. That one, and second, I think for Mr. Patil, because your role becomes very important. Are you ensuring that all of the requirements that is provided for in the EIA are being complied with in a proper manner, and for all the stakeholders who are working along with you? Just these two.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to the panelists. Very quick one. So in Africa, we've seen DABs, the avoidance elements of DABs, disputed adjudication and avoidance boards, integrated in the mining sector. I'd be very curious whether there have been those developments in India, and whether they have been used as a form of engaging communities, public participation, and so forth. Thank you.
Maybe I'll go first. So ma'am, you're right, whether it has to be a regulator or a tribunal, because regulator is already there, which according to me is becoming a leasing authority. Now, from an experience which we are looking at National Green Tribunal, when it was formed pursuant to the Kyoto Declaration later on, the idea was pious, but it has really become to a delayed and everything is going to the court. Now, for some micro issues which can be distinguished, a specialized authority, as I said, RERA, TAMP, or any similar kind of a authority, I'm not saying a tribunal wherein a court has to preside, give a detailed judgment. If authority comes in, it might solve micro problems. As Sarah said, every industry has some pious intentions when they are going into. If they are giving money to the 3,000 people for resettlement, still people are unhappy. If they are unhappy because of one or two smaller issues, one thing is self-regulation, that people can go to that company, get that resolved, which I don't think is happening. That's why the whole UN cry. So why not go to a smaller authority wherein there is a smaller problem which can be resolved? Maybe it could be problem about water, problem about contamination, problem about bad air. Those can be resolved by that authority. If it's not happening, of course, National Green Tribunal are there, courts are there, which will always be there. So I think it's like a stopgap arrangement. How it will go through, I'm not really sure. But some authorities I genuinely feel have always been a matter of critique, but could help. And second question, which I am generally, which I think Sidharth had said, which is really important, is not followed in the country, is like Bombay Bar has been a pioneer on the real estate industry of getting consent. I'll specifically when you are a home buyer, you have to take consent if you are making any changes. Now somehow it has not reached the Ministry of Mines and Minerals. Once a place has been identified, because that place has a iron ore or any other mineral, a prior consent should be taken from the local Aboriginal tribes, local people, and thereafter the bidding process starts. So there is no dispute. And thereafter, of course, it can be left to the concessionaire, the local authorities to take it ahead. I think that is something which is, I generally feel is missing in the whole setup.
Thank you. Mr. Patil, you want to respond?
Yeah. As rightly asked by you, the role of the SEO or the AI coordinator is very important. I will give you my example. I work in a municipal corporation, and I have worked, at least out of 36 years, I worked 18 years in the solid waste management department. I have done a lot of works as far as the landfill sites, the collection, everything is there. When I went into the field of this thing, what environmental, and applied for the AI coordinator, my AI coordinator application was rejected. I fought, and after 8 years, I got the AI coordination. The people who are having qualifications of certain are getting after 5 years of this thing, they become the team members, then I don't know whether you know the process, then they become the functional area associate, then they become functional area experts, and they become the AI coordinator. It takes almost 5-6 years for them to do. Purely panel interview. I got experience, I was having practice, but then also I fought. The quality of the AI coordinator and the quality of the SEO is very important. They should have the integrity in preparing the AI report, number one. Number two, you must have seen, whether we go to ESC or in SIA, you have got definite time of appraisal of your processes. Irrespective of the size of the project, your proposal is going to get appraised within maximum 1.5 hours. Irrespective of उतने में करने मुझे 16 आइटम आज करने हैं खत्म हो गए ऐसा नहीं किया होता. I have seen only one committee. They used to take the chapter by chapter here this thing on a day-to-day basis. Next time you come with this chapter. So this type of quality is more important. Number one for this thing, preparing the AI report. That is a part of it. Number two is what you call, as I said, implementation. It is the responsibility of the actually project proponent to have the environmental management cell. हमारे इधर क्या होता है मैडम, लूपहोल्स बहुत से कोई चेक नहीं करता है ना, क्यों करने का? अगर कोई चेक नहीं करता तो मैं क्यों करे? ये एटीट्यूड हमारी है. मैं ट्रेन के अंदर ट्रैवल करूँगा, टीसी नहीं आने वाला, टिकट चेक करने वाला, मैं क्यों टिकट निकालूँ? ऐसे हमारी एटीट्यूड होगी. दिस ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ दैट, डिटोरेशन इज ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ दैट. प्लान्स आर एवरीथिंग इज देयर. हम लोग क्या प्लान बनाते समय उसको कैसे एक्सपांड करने का है, एक सेंटेंस को कैसा 10 सेंटेंस में उसको आगे कैसा उसकी ये करनी है, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए क्या क्या करनी है. Micro planning has to be there. This is not done. Very frankly, I myself is not satisfied the way in which sometimes the environmental impact assessment reports are prepared, and it is just, it depends upon the, normally it is seen that बाबा उनको क्या चाहिए, ये ऐसी टीम है, इनके पास इनकी रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है, उतना ही चैप्टर डालो, खत्म कर दो. This is very bad.
Thank you so much. I think we've ran out of time. Whoever questions are not answered, the panelists are here for lunch. On one-on-one, your questions can be answered. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.